Loretta Sharp. I want the commission to think about limiting the time that the commissioners can speak to 5 minutes. The last meeting that I was at, I was disgusted, I was appalled at the behavior of some of the members on this commission.
Me too.
And I've been coming to commission meetings for almost 25 years, and I've never seen anything like it. So I really think that you should limit the amount of time that you have to talk to 2 minutes to say why you're voting yes or no, and then 3 minutes to debate it. If we have to say what we have to say in 2 minutes, I'm sure that you can say anything that you have to say in 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Riccardi, you wrote something. Our trash recycle pickup people are exceptionally efficient. I've witnessed this throughout the city. Thank you. It's a compliment.
Very good. I do. I just want
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
That's all right.
There's always been up there.
Oh, that's all right. I really just want to give a little plug to our trash pickup people. I don't know if anyone ever watches them, but throughout the city, I've never seen people work as efficient as these guys do. They're quick, they're fast, they're in, they're out, they get the darn job done, and they try not to hold up the traffic. So I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Peter Tim, followed by Katie McGivern.
Peter Tim, North Low Street. Yes, I'm very happy, Mayor, that you have already announced this meeting, because one of my neighbors called me up at after 10 Sunday morning and said, "Did you read it in the paper? There's going to be a meeting." And so I'm happy to see that you have beat us to it and you have announced that we're going to have a meeting. But that gives me many, many questions. Question 1, is it an open meeting? I don't know. Question number 2, will the public be able to speak at this meeting? Because I know in the workshops, many times we're not allowed to talk, we just sit there and listen. Number 3, what will become of this meeting? What happens at this meeting? I think that anything they decide upon has to come before this commission, but I'm not sure of that. I don't know if they can make any decisions on their own and bypass the city people and just go ahead and do something. Because we've seen people do a lot of strange things in Lake Worth, so I would like you to be able to announce to the people exactly what is going on and why. Because we seem to jump from one crisis to another one. And that ain't fun no more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Katie McGivern.
Katie McGivern, 2121 Collier Avenue. In the next election, we must elect commissioners and a mayor who understand the concept of representative government. We must put people on this dais who understand that they are servants of the people of Lake Worth. We must elect people who will do everything in their power to foster the businesses in this town, not intimidate them. Walking door to door in the last election, I heard multiple business owners complaining about the cost and difficulty of doing business in Lake Worth. I would ask them why they didn't come to a meeting and tell the commission their problems, and I always got the same answer. No way. I don't want code enforcement on my doorstep the next morning. We must elect people who will hire a city manager that will celebrate and honor our long-term employees, not fire them. And we must elect a commission mayor who never think that it is all right to keep secrets of any kind from the people of Lake Worth. Anyone who takes the time to listen to the audio of the Select Committee of the ITN will find a deliberate and breathtaking disregard and disrespect for the public voiced on them. And finally, we must elect commissioners and a mayor who understand that they are here to listen to their citizens, not lecture to them and call them names. At the last commission meeting, Commissioner Scott Maxwell called over half the voters in Lake Worth racist because they voted against the 2020 bond issue. The idea that I'm standing here tonight having to ask for an apology for such reckless comments speaks for itself. Thank you.
Next, Lawrence McNamara left a card. Do other Lake Worth citizens find it shocking that City Attorney Christy Godot has suggested that she may be able to find a way around the beach charter amendment voted for 9-1 to protect our beach against overdevelopment? Mayor Triolo, Vice Mayor Maxwell, and Commissioner Amoroso must be complicit or she would not be suggesting this. False. John Faust, followed by Tenant Divisium.
John Faust, speaking on behalf of the NAPC. Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to announce the theme of the 2015 Great American Raft Race tonight.
Drum roll, please.
And the theme is favorite books, reading regatta. The name of the event will be the 2015 Great American Riff Raft Race. Riff as in reading is fundamental. So with that, you can take pretty much anything from any book. If it's Dr. Seuss or fairy tales or 50 Shades of Grey or 50 Shades of Crazy, any other novels. I do need to tell you though, and put you on notice, that Downtown Jewel, celebrating the Dick sisters in Morag Dick, we are taking Moby Dick. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome. Did I pronounce that right?
Commissioner. Haven't seen you before. I've been here a long time. I speak for my friend Dean.
Microphone here. Stay here.
That's me. Can you hear me? On March 11th, Election Day, Dean McNamara misspoke. Carelessly, mindlessly, misspoke.
Listen, that's what it's called.
27 days later, on May 5th, Easter Day, there was a protest in front of her home. On the corner were two sheriffs in an unmarked car. We are in Parrot Cove. We are in my neighborhood, where I have been since 1981. The next day was Monday, and the protesters were back in the afternoon. And I called the sheriff to say, my neighborhood will be under siege soon. I am alarmed.
Quiet in the chambers, please.
He and Lawrence McNamara have been good friends and good neighbors for 20 years. Irrespective of what you think of her behavior or her opinions, no one has the entitlement to make her life miserable now. She does not deserve the eye of the wrath that has been going on. I want to rush her. I have been deliberating overnight, in the night, in this morning, what I want to say, what I need to say. I've come up with one thing from the Bible. May I speak from the Bible?
Of course.
Thank you. Let those without sin cast the first stone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I rest my case.
Mark Perilla, followed by John Zerdy.
Mark Perilla, 701 South 8th Street. Let he who be without sin cast the first stone. I guess under that philosophy, nobody should have cast the first stone at Hitler or Fidel Castro or Mussolini, and so on. There have been 2 peaceful protests so far in front of Dee McNamara's home for her disgusting behavior before the swearing in when she used the N-word in these chambers when responding to a city employee who asked her to move from the reserved seating row. I am proud to state that I have successfully had her terminated from Rinker Realty, and I have called every reputable real estate brokerage firm in Palm Beach County to make them aware of the reason why she was terminated from Rinker Realty. I did not do this seeking anyone's approval, nor does anyone's disapproval discourage me from continuing to organize peaceful protests against radical racism in my city. There will be other residents of our fine city we will be stopping in on, so take a good look at this face. And we will even be taking it outside of our city limits as well. Let this serve as formal notice to anyone who believes that their low-class, vile displays of racism and bigotry will go unaddressed. They will be met with steadfast, peaceful opposition by some of your neighbors who have no problem showing up in front of your home or apartment with signs to send a message that we will no longer put up with blatant racism in our city. We have come too far. We are a diverse and accepting city, and those who continue putting efforts into trying to divide us will surely face the consequences that result from their actions. Good news.
John Zerdy, followed by Tammy Panza. Quiet in the chambers, please. Quiet in the chambers, please.
Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up was, again, our public information officer that I'd like to see you all consider soon. Because I don't think that what we've heard over the past few months is actually the will of the people. I think it's more confused with the apathy of the people or the unknowledge of the people in terms of what the city has done positively. And I think part of the positive thing is not only the commission up here, but our city manager as well. And so I don't think it really is fair to say the will of this people have spoken when only 5% of the population showed up. And 3% of the entire population actually voted one way or another. So that's a very minimal and discouraging situation. I think a public information officer would be important. As far as the last meeting was concerned, we know that we have meetings, and I was here every week. We meet with our city manager, who gives us a lot of information back on things that are going on. And so with that, we have to have a meeting with our city manager individually. We cannot meet with him collectively. This is what this is all about. And so I think that you can have full preparation. I prepared for the meeting that way. I read the information before, as you do. When you show up and pull things off the consent, maybe it's important to discuss financial situations or things that maybe the public might want to know. But to go down line by line in such a way to waste all people's time, and that meeting went on so long last time, it was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. So our mayor and our commission worked really hard to promote our city's benefit for investment in our city, try to have stability in our town. And yet look what happens here. We're having somebody come up and say that that's not true with our businesses. I spend more time, I don't see certain people here at our businesses every weekend like I do. They're not around, going around and looking at and saying, what's going on here with the business? They don't even show up downtown. So I think that that's important. And be back to talk about mine later.
Tammy Panza?
Tammy Panza, 116 North L Street. Wanted to make a little comment on all of the talk about, I hated to just say it, racism, and like where someone calls someone a bad word, they get vilified, and then someone else talks about them lacking judgment. Someone else says someone is racist and calls them out on it, and all of a sudden they're terrible. Basically, Lake Worth is not racist. Lake Worth is a pretty good town, and I'd love to see that word go away. It's just ridiculous. What I really came up here to talk about, though, was the meeting last 24th of March, where a really volatile item was added to the agenda at the last minute. It was not publicly noticed. I know that it is not required to have every detail published, but as, in the spirit of the Sunshine Law, it actually says that even though the Sunshine Law does not prohibit a board from adding to topics, the commission should be sensitive to the community's concerns and it be allowed advance notice. And I would ask that the commission respects that. I would like to talk about it. I'm a member of the public. I don't appreciate it not being agended. I don't appreciate it being put on the agenda 2 hours in advance. And I do not think it's transparent, no matter how zealously you want to participate and take up the reins of a new position. Don't leave the people you represent behind in your zeal. Please don't. I want to talk about it, and I would appreciate all the people who have been on the commission for a while to have a little bit of restraint and maybe give us 24 hours notice, put out a public notice, put it on paper. I don't want to hear about this on Facebook. So pretty much that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments? Ms. Pianza, I agree with you. I'll start since no one's got their hand up. I agree with you 110%. In fact, that's why I said that I hadn't even looked at the information. I hadn't even had a chance to review the information. The way in which the vote ended up going, though, it will, as it always was intended to be, publicly vetted with public participation. And in fact, we're having it in a workshop setting where no vote will be made on it while it's presented initially, and then we'll have a vote on it after. I believe that's what was agreed to by consensus last weekend. So it hasn't. It was more the issue itself than the actual items of the real ITN process. So, you know, I'm waiting like everybody else to figure out what's going on. You guys sometimes know more than I do, but so all that information will be at that meeting, and there will be no vote on it initially, and then it'll go before the commission for a vote. But I agree with you 110%. Psyched about the raft race. Loving that idea. We're gonna have to come up with something here. I don't want another paddle anything, please. At least the rudder worked last year, but we've got to streamline something new for our commission.
It presents an engineering difficulty.
Well, we're gonna get Jamie on that issue.
Let me say, just saying.
Ms. Sharp, in reference to the commission's talking, we created, and you know, I try to be loose because I don't want to be, no matter what I do, of course, if you bang the gavel, you do this, you're a bully or whatever. But it's my job to run the meetings, and we created ordinances that are in our rules and regulations that if an issue goes beyond a half hour, Pam, is it a half hour, an hour? I can't remember, it's been so long.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, that it's moved to a workshop. So with that said, from this point on, we are going to do this, and I would like everyone to, this is in our rule book for our city. Everyone gets one pass at it. You get one response. We're not going to be debating back and forth, tit for tat, please. We're not going to be doing that anymore, with going back between accusations, allegations, everything else. This is a place where we bring the will of the people before it, we vote on it, and we move ahead, and we move forward. We've done a great job in the last couple of years of being able to handle a lot of business by keeping our comments, you know, limited to the item and discussing only those items, not going off on a soapbox or a tangent or this or that. This is not the time for politics. This is not the time for anything other than that issue. I will keep you to that issue. One shot, one rebuttal, and then we vote. And that's in our rules, and that's what we're going to do. If the talk goes beyond 30 minutes, it's moving to workshop. Okay, we're not gonna go through this. And I was very disappointed last meeting at everyone from up here and out there. You know, we've really gotten things to hum here. We've streamlined the meetings. We've gotten them down. We've handled them very professionally. And you know, it's one thing. Like I said, we don't have to agree. That's okay. But really, let's have respect for one another. There was screaming from every side of every issue, and I'll tell you, next time I will have people removed because we're not going to do this before. If I warn you once, second time, I'm not going to. It's no 3 chances. Boom, you're out of the room. We've got business to conduct. We owe it to the people of the city, and we've got a lot of work to do. So, all right, a little tough love here for everybody, but we've got a lot of business and I don't want to take up all the time of the business. Okay. Any other comments? The whole situation, I'm not even going to get into it. I just find the whole thing saddening. And as for Mr. Zerdy's comments, when you talked about business, you know, everything that is said, whether it's from your lips, whether it's on a blog, whether it's in a letter to your neighbor, whether it's from up here on the dais, everything you say has repercussions. And sometimes when we think of ourselves in the heat of the moment, we forget the fact that people, including us, have real lives, jobs, responsibilities, families, and that we can lose things when people make up things. We can lose things like a $150,000 client, or we can lose things like the respect of a family member or a community member that thinks something ill of you. That every single thing, everything you say that you put out there in this world has a direct response to it. So keep that in mind, and I say keep that in mind for everybody on every side of every issue, that there's a real live person on the end of that conversation, that post, that story, that phone call, that letter. There's a real person who has a real life and family members and jobs and employees and people that depend on them. Before you do that, please think about that. And have respect for one another, whatever side of the issue you're on. Commissioner Amoroso. Vice Mayor.
If nobody else has to speak, I'd like to speak. First of all, Mr. Reverend Riccardi, thank you so much for your positive comments about city staff. Oftentimes you hear the negative of side of life, and rarely do you hear the positive, so thank you so much for taking the time and coming out and recognizing the folks in that department. I'd like to also comment on Ms. Sharp's comment about the time limitations. Madam Mayor, you may recall a few years ago I had proposed that certain standard that we go by. We basically structured after Robert's rules, where basically nobody spoke until a motion was made in a second, and that the only time anybody would speak would be if they opposed the measure. Otherwise, you went straight to the public comment and then we'll vote. I would suggest we revisit that because, as has been said in different ways here over the last couple of weeks, you know, we need to prepare for our meetings in advance. We all have the opportunity to meet with the city manager. If we have any questions that are specific to an item, we certainly have access through the city manager to work directly with the department heads to get the information we need. The agendas are posted in advance that the public, if they have any questions or any concerns, they certainly can reach out to their representatives and ask the questions of them or find out what they need to know before the meeting takes place. But the meetings in general are not designed for us to come in and do this from the seat of our pants, where we see the agenda item perhaps for the first time or without having done some of that homework and kind of going through everything, essentially revisiting the one-on-one meetings we have with the city manager. That's not really what these meetings are designed to do. Let's see, number 3. In reference to the comments made about businesses downtown, the cost of their doing business being a little bit high, I can tell you that that is not a concern that I've heard. I mean, nobody likes to pay fees or licensing fees or whatever. I don't know what fees were referenced here, but my understanding of the cost of doing business as far as the municipal piece of this is we're comparable, if not less expensive, than our neighboring municipalities. So if there's anybody specifically out there that feels extra pressure on their bottom line with respect to cost of doing business in Lake Worth, they're certainly welcome to pick up the phone and either call the city manager or call one of us, and let's look at it. Maybe we've overlooked something and maybe we can make some adjustments. Let's see what else. Also, finally, with respect to Ms. McGivern's comments about my comments last meeting, I think most of you know that I have a real passion for the city. A real passion for the city. I fought for many, many years to try to get everybody on the same page and recognize that we have a lot of challenges that we need to work on together. Some of those challenges are certainly the infrastructure of our city, creating an environment where folks want to invest their money in our city, to provide the same services, level of services, and the same courtesy to all of our residents, regardless of whether they live in the wealthiest of the neighborhoods or the poorest of the neighborhoods. That's been my passion for the last 15 years. You know, for those who may have misinterpreted what I said last week or the week before as something, I apologize wholeheartedly, but if you go back and listen to the tape, you clearly understand that that's not what I said. I did not say the folks that voted for the bond or anything. I said that some of the folks who thwarted, who spearheaded that effort. Okay, so I invite anybody to go back and listen to the tape. Okay, I would never, ever, with a broad brush, paint an entire demographic like that. Okay, I think you listen to the tape, you understand the context of what I said and the spirit of what I said, you'll understand what I said. So anybody who wants to try to misinterpret that, well, I guess we'll just have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis. But again, for those folks who may have misinterpreted my comments, I do wholeheartedly apologize. For those people who clearly understood what I was talking about, then if you have exception to that, you can speak with me personally. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Panza, regarding your comments regarding the timeliness of the agenda item to cancel the ITN regarding the beach, that was an agenda item that I added. I just wanted to make it clear that I did not submit the item 2 hours prior to the meeting. I submitted the item prior to noon on the Friday before the Tuesday meeting. Beyond that point, I'm not sure why the delay. I'm not sure why it wasn't added until 2 hours prior to the meeting. The 3 days prior to that Friday where I submitted the agenda item, I requested of staff to have a clear deadline by which I could submit an agenda item. Still, as of this point, I'm not really sure that I have a clear answer yet, but according to the city attorney, my adding that agenda item by noon on Friday was sufficient. However, for whatever reason, I do apologize to the public. I certainly wasn't trying to keep people in the dark. Actually, quite the opposite. I was trying to draw attention to the situation. Now that some of that information is public record on the website, on the city website, I certainly stand behind my decision to add that agenda item, and I still hold my position there. Ms. Sharp, regarding your comments about limiting the time that the commissioners speak, I only sat on the dais for one meeting. I will agree that it was a very long meeting. However, when I look at the amount of time that we actually spend in this room discussing matters that affect the entire city, we're only here twice a month. And really, I don't think, if we turn that